I used to think heartbreak would announce itself like a thunderstorm, loud, messy, and impossible to ignore. But in my case, it arrived like a whisper, quiet, subtle, almost respectful in its cruelty. I'm 32 now, and looking back, I can tell you exactly when the cracks began to show. But in the moment, I thought I was just overthinking. My wife, let's call her M, was the kind of woman people naturally gravitated toward. Warm, driven, effortlessly charming. We met at a friend's engagement party. She wore this emerald green dress that made her eyes pop, and when she laughed, I swear the whole room softened. Within a year, we were inseparable. By year 2, married. We had that kind of rhythm other couples envied, inside jokes that made no sense to anyone else, spontaneous road trips just because, lazy Sunday mornings spent debating which cereal reigned supreme. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Real. Solid. At least that's what I believed. 6 months ago, things started to shift. At first, it was small, the kind of stuff you brush off if you're not really paying attention. She began taking her phone with her everywhere, even into the bathroom. It struck me as odd, only because she used to leave it on the coffee table for hours, unlocked, unworried. One day, half joking, I said, "What, you running a secret spy network now?" She laughed, said work had gotten more demanding, seemed harmless enough, but then came the password. M had never used one before. We weren't the check each other's phones kind of couple, but it had always been open, an unspoken agreement of trust. So when I noticed the lock screen for the first time, I asked about it. She waved it off, said something vague about data breaches and security. Logical? Sure, but there was something rehearsed about the way she said it. I felt it, like she'd practiced that answer. Soon, the calls started happening in the other room. I'd hear the phone ring, and instead of answering it next to me like she used to, she'd quickly say, "Just a friend from work," and disappear onto the porch. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe she needed quiet. Maybe I was being paranoid. But the gut doesn't lie. Then came the distancing. Conversations that once flowed like warm coffee began to stall. She seemed distracted when I spoke, half listening, always tired. When I brought up things like planning a weekend getaway or even buying a new car, she'd just nod and mutter, "Yeah, maybe," and change the subject. She wasn't mean, just absent. And still, I didn't confront her, not directly. I wanted to believe this was just a phase, a bad week, stress from work, something we'd laugh about later when we were old and gray and still bickering over cereal brands. The final straw came one afternoon, a Wednesday. She said she was meeting a coworker for coffee. It was casual. M had always been social, but I happened to be in the area running errands. I thought I'd surprise her. Pop in, say hi, maybe grab a drink together. She wasn't inside the cafe. Instead, I saw her pacing outside, phone pressed to her ear. She was too focused to notice me parked across the street. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I caught pieces of the conversation. "It's almost ready. Starting fresh soon." Her voice was low, serious. Nothing about it sounded like casual gossip or work drama. I sat there in silence, heart thudding. That was the moment the whisper of heartbreak became a scream inside my chest, and yet I still wasn't sure what I was hearing. All I knew was this. Something was coming, something big, and I was the only one who didn't see it coming. After that afternoon outside the cafe, I couldn't shake the chill I felt in my chest. I didn't confront M right away. I wasn't even sure what to say. "Hey, I accidentally overheard you whispering about starting fresh and now I think you're leaving me?" It sounded paranoid, desperate, so I stayed quiet but I started watching. That night, she came home as if nothing happened, kicked off her shoes, gave me a peck on the cheek, and asked what I wanted for dinner. I studied her face while she rummaged through the fridge, trying to find any trace of guilt, any sign she was hiding something. But she looked the same. Calm, collected, like she hadn't just been pacing the sidewalk whispering to someone I couldn't see. Then, as I poured a glass of water, she turned and said casually, "Hey, I was thinking, maybe we should organize all our financial stuff, just in case something ever happens." I nearly dropped the glass. "What kind of something?" I asked, keeping my voice even. She shrugged. "You know, emergencies, like if one of us got sick or needed to make big decisions quickly." I just think it would be smart to have all the info in one place: passwords, account numbers, deeds, insurance, all of it. She said it like someone recommending a new filing system: neat, clean, innocent. But to me, it felt like a warning shot. We'd been married for 4 years. For most of that time, we kept our finances pretty separate. Shared bills went into a joint account, but the rest? We had our own systems. It had never been a problem. Why now? Why this sudden interest in transparency? I nodded, pretending to agree. Yeah, that could be a good idea. Inside, my heart was pounding. Over the next few days, she brought it up again, twice. Once while I was chopping vegetables, and again while we were getting ready for bed. Both times her tone was light, almost rehearsed. She didn't press, just casually suggested it like someone trying not to spook a wild animal. But I wasn't the one hiding something. The more she mentioned it, the more everything started to click. The new phone habits, the secretive calls, the emotional distance. It wasn't stress, it wasn't work, it was strategy. Em wasn't just planning something. She was planning an exit. And for the first time in our marriage, I felt completely alone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the ceiling, thinking about our wedding day. The way she cried during her vows, the trembling in her hand when she slipped the ring onto my finger. Was it real? Had any of it been real? By morning, I had a plan. While she was at work, I logged into our joint account and started combing through the transactions. I wasn't expecting to find much, maybe a few strange purchases or extra withdrawals, but what I saw made my stomach turn. Small transfers, frequent and not connected to any known bills or expenses. A few $100s here, a few there, all within the last month. She wasn't just thinking about leaving, she was preparing for it. Still, I didn't want to act impulsively. I called my old college buddy, James. He's a lawyer now, someone I trust. I told him what I'd seen, asked him for advice. His response was simple but firm. If you're even thinking she's planning something, you need to protect yourself now before it's too late. It felt like betrayal, like I was pulling away from someone I loved just to survive. But James was right. By that night, I had already started gathering documents, account info, investment records, the deed to the house. Em walked in, gave me her usual smile, asked what I was working on. I smiled back. Just organizing some stuff. You know, in case of emergencies. And just like that, I took the first step towards saving myself from a person I still loved but no longer recognized. The following week felt like living on a tightrope, every step careful, calculated, yet heavy with the fear that one wrong move would send everything crashing. I didn't want to believe Em would betray me, but her actions spoke louder than any "I love you" she could whisper. I kept up the charade. Every morning I made her coffee just the way she liked it. 2 sugars, no cream. We watched a couple episodes of her favorite show at night, and when she smiled at me like everything was okay, I smiled back, but inside, I was preparing for war. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. My mind raced with questions. How long had she been planning this? Was she alone in it? Or was someone whispering in her ear, telling her she could take everything I'd worked for and walk away clean? I remembered what James, my lawyer friend, told me. Protect yourself before she makes the first legal move. So I did. I went to the bank first. I didn't drain the joint account, just trimmed it enough so we wouldn't raise red flags. I left enough to cover our bills and keep up appearances. The rest? I moved it, slowly in small increments, into a new account under my name only. Then I reached out to a trusted estate attorney and set up a living trust. The biggest decision came with the house. That house wasn't just property, it was our home. The place where I asked her to move in. The kitchen where we danced barefoot at midnight. The living room where we put up our first Christmas tree. And now it was a target. With the help of my lawyer, I transferred the deed into my mother's name through the trust. Legal, airtight, and irreversible. When the papers were finalized, I called my mom. "Hey," I said, voice shaky. "I need your help." "Of course, baby, what is it?" I didn't give her every detail, just enough to get her on board. I told her it was about protecting myself, about a possible separation. She didn't ask too many questions, just listened, the way moms do when they know you're hurting more than you're letting on. "I've got you," she said, "whatever you need." After we hung up, I sat alone at the dining room table and cried. It wasn't just sadness, it was grief. For the marriage I thought I had, for the woman I believed would grow old with me, for the man I used to be before I had to question whether my own wife was plotting to rob me blind. Em didn't notice anything had changed. She still kissed me goodnight, still scrolled through her phone, back turned to me in bed. She didn't ask about the finances again. Maybe she thought I had taken the bait and was moving things into place for her plan to succeed, but I had beaten her to the punch. At dinner, a few nights later, she seemed cheerful, giggly even. She complimented my cooking and asked about my day, and just for a moment, I almost believed this was all in my head. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she wasn't planning something behind my back. But then I caught her glance, subtle, calculating, as if she was watching me for signs of movement, like a poker player studying their opponent. That night, I pulled out the file folder with every document. The trust, the accounts, the notarized transfers. I read through it all again. My hands trembled, but my resolve didn't. If she was going to play this like a game, I had no choice but to win by not playing hers. 2 weeks later, it happened. It was a quiet Friday evening. Too quiet. Em asked if we could talk. Her tone was distant, polished, rehearsed. I knew it before she even said the words. I think we should get a divorce. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She delivered it like a corporate memo. Cold, efficient, impersonal. I didn't flinch. I just nodded. If that's how you feel, we should figure out the next steps, I said evenly. Her eyes searched my face, probably expecting a breakdown, maybe even begging. But I gave her nothing, because I had already grieved. I had already buried the version of her I once loved. Then came the papers. On Monday, a thick envelope was waiting for me. The moment I opened it, my stomach turned. Her next steps weren't just about ending the marriage. They were about erasing me from the life I had built. Half the house, half the savings, my 401k, the car, even spousal support, all neatly itemized as if she had earned it, as if everything we'd built together wasn't carried on my back for the past 6 years. That's when I knew. This wasn't a moment of clarity or emotional unraveling. This was strategy, calculated, cold, guided probably by someone else. Maybe that friend she mentioned when she said she deserved more. I handed the packet to my attorney without a word. He skimmed it, then looked up and asked, "She really thinks she's going to walk away with all this?" I shook my head. She doesn't know what I've done. At mediation, the air was thick with tension. Em walked in like she owned the room, flanked by her attorney who looked like he charged $800 an hour and lived off drama. Her eyes met mine briefly, sharp, expectant, like she thought I'd be broken by the weight of her demands. Instead, I was calm. Her attorney began with confidence, listing every asset she was claiming, arguing her sacrifices warranted significant compensation. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. When it was our turn, my lawyer slid a folder across the table. "These documents," he said, "show that all major assets were legally transferred to a trust in my client's mother's name 2 weeks prior to the divorce filing." Em's lawyer's smile vanished. He flipped through the documents, his eyebrows furrowed, her face turned pale. "What is this?" he asked, stunned. Em grabbed the papers and scanned them quickly. Her expression morphed from confusion to panic, and then rage. "You planned this," she spat, turning to me. "You knew I was going to file." Still, I said nothing. Her lawyer's tone changed from cocky to clipped. "We'll need time to review." "There's nothing to review," my lawyer said. "The transfers were notarized and processed in advance. They're legal, irrevocable." The silence in the room was deafening. She knew. She had lost. When we left the room, Em grabbed my arm in the hallway, eyes blazing. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You're going to regret this." I looked her dead in the eyes and replied, "The only thing I regret is ever trusting you." She turned away without a word, and for the first time in weeks I felt free, not just protected, but finally in control. After the mediation, Em's mask shattered. The woman who once sat across the table with a smug smirk and a checklist of demands had crumbled into someone I barely recognized, angry, confused, and spiraling. It started with the voicemails. The first few were controlled, even gentle. "I think we just need to talk, Liam," she said in one, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean for things to get so messy. I just want to fix this. Then they shifted. Fast. By day 2, the messages came in waves, some sobbing, others full of rage. One minute, she was blaming me for everything wrong in her life. The next, she was crying about how we used to laugh until 2 a.m., how we'd dance barefoot in the kitchen with takeout containers and no music. But I didn't respond, not once. My attorney had made it clear, no contact. And honestly, even if he hadn't, I wouldn't have answered. I had spent months living in confusion, trying to decode her distance, her coldness. Now the truth was laid bare, and it was ugly. Still, she wasn't done. When I didn't engage, she pivoted. Mutual friends started reaching out, confused. "Hey, Em told us the divorce was just a misunderstanding," one messaged. "She says you're still working through things privately." I couldn't help but laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was so her. Trying to rewrite the story, control the narrative, erase the fact that she tried to take everything from me. Her lie didn't hold up long. Another friend texted, "Wait, she said it was all a prank. But I saw the court filings. She's really saying it was fake?" The absurdity of it all would have been entertaining if it weren't so exhausting. But then came the real shift. When people started seeing her for who she truly was, that's when Matt, one of our looser mutuals, reached out. "I think you need to see this," he said, sliding his phone across the coffee shop table. Text messages, screenshots between M and a man named Jake. I scrolled silently, each message cutting deeper than the last. Her words, "Once the settlement's done, we'll have everything we need." Jake's reply, "Don't back down. Make him feel guilty if you have to. He owes you." Another from her, "He has no idea. We're so close." My chest tightened. This wasn't just betrayal. This was premeditated. I had suspected someone else was involved, someone hyping her up. But now I had proof. She hadn't just wanted a fresh start. She wanted it funded by me. Matt looked away, ashamed to be the one to break the news. "I thought you deserved to know," he muttered. "I do," I said, holding his gaze. "Thank you." Those screenshots spread like wildfire among our circle. Within days, her carefully curated victim story fell apart. Friends who had defended her now went silent. Even her own brother called to apologize. "I didn't know," he said, his voice cracked with guilt. "I thought she just needed space. I'm sorry for believing her." As for Jake, he vanished. No more comments, no more likes, no more posts. Gone, just like the fantasy life she thought she was building. And Em, her calls turned from rage to desperation. "Can we just meet once? I'll drop the support. I just want to talk. I made a mistake, Liam, please." But it was too late. The woman who tried to destroy me was now drowning in the wreckage she created. And I was just getting started on rebuilding without her. After Matt gave me those screenshots, it felt like the last piece of the puzzle had snapped into place. All the late-night doubts, all the gut feelings I'd dismissed for months. Confirmed. This wasn't some emotional breakdown or moment of confusion. This was deliberate, calculated, and now undeniable. The fallout was immediate. Word got out. I didn't spread the screenshots myself, but Matt did what he thought was right. He showed them to a few people we knew, and from there, the truth traveled like wildfire. Friends who once defended Em now went radio silent. Her closest confidants pulled back. And her story? The one where she was the victim in a cold, unfeeling marriage? It unraveled right in front of her. Even the people who had believed her most started reaching out to me. Her brother, who once accused me of overreacting, called me out of the blue. His voice cracked when he spoke. "I didn't know what she was doing to you," he said. "I'm sorry I ever took her word for it." I thanked him, not because I needed his apology, but because I could tell he meant it. As for Jake, he disappeared, vanished like smoke. No more "you've got this" comments. No more selfies from her apartment. No more posts. I wouldn't be surprised if he ghosted her the moment he realized she wasn't walking away with a six-figure payday. Maybe that was always the plan. String her along with sweet talk and dreams of starting over, only to bounce when reality hit. Em, though, she was crumbling. Her calls became erratic. First, she begged. Then she lashed out. Then she begged again. The voicemail that finally made me turn off notifications came in at 2:37 a.m. Her voice was trembling. "You don't have to forgive me," she said, "but can't we just meet once? I miss you. I miss us." It broke my heart in a way I wasn't prepared for, not because I wanted her back, but because I could hear the person I used to know in her voice again, the woman who used to wrap her arms around me on cold nights and whisper about our future. But that version of her? She died the moment she chose betrayal over love, and I wasn't going to resurrect a ghost. The divorce finalized quietly after that. Her lawyer folded. There were no assets to fight over, nothing left for her to take. The trust my mother held was airtight, and every dollar I had earned was right where I left it. Safe. The house remained mine, my car, my savings, everything. But the most valuable thing I walked away with wasn't money. It was peace. For the first time in over a year, I wasn't waking up with a pit in my stomach. I didn't have to decode texts or tiptoe around conversations. I could breathe, I could think clearly, and I could finally begin rebuilding the version of my life I actually wanted. My mom, God bless her, showed up the day after the court hearing with a bucket of paint and a bottle of red wine. "This place needs a new energy," she said. And she was right. We painted the walls a soft, calming gray. I changed the furniture layout. I bought new curtains, something Em had always said she'd get around to but never did. It wasn't about aesthetics. It was about reclaiming the space, my story. That weekend, I threw out every trace of her. Photos, clothes, old gifts. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. And it felt good, so good, to start over on my own terms. It turns out surviving betrayal isn't just about protecting your assets. It's about protecting your peace. And mine? I wasn't trading it for anyone ever again. Weeks passed after the divorce papers were signed, and life finally started to quiet down for Liam. He still got the occasional late-night text from Em. "Can we just talk?" Or, "You know this isn't how it was supposed to end." But he didn't answer. Not because he was bitter, but because he was healing. Answering would have reopened wounds he had already bled from for too long. Instead, Liam poured his energy into rebuilding his routine. He joined a local gym again, started hiking with his dog Cooper on weekends, and even picked up photography, something he'd always loved but never had time for when he was busy tending to someone else's version of a relationship. One evening, while flipping through an old notebook, he found a list titled "Someday." It was written in M's handwriting. Travel plans, a new kitchen layout, random house projects. What struck Liam most was how many of those items had required his sacrifice, his time, his money, his compromises. None of them were about what he wanted. For the first time in years, he asked himself, "What do I want?" It wasn't revenge, it wasn't answers, it was peace. But peace isn't always gentle. Sometimes it comes only after chaos, and Liam had learned that the hard way. The more time passed, the more the community around him began to shift, too. Friends who had distanced themselves during the drama started reaching back out. Some admitted they had believed M's story until the truth came out. Others said they just didn't know what to say. Liam didn't hold it against them. Everyone processes betrayal differently. One afternoon while getting groceries, Liam ran into Matt, the guy who had originally brought him the damning screenshots of Em and Jake. They ended up grabbing coffee and sitting outside the shop, catching up like old friends. "You look lighter," Matt said. Liam smiled. "I feel it." Matt leaned forward. "She's been telling people you froze her out, that you never gave her closure." Liam laughed, not bitterly, just softly like someone who's already let go. "I didn't owe her closure," he said. "She gave herself all the answers when she chose someone else. I just finally listened." That night, Liam opened his laptop and wrote himself a letter. Not to Em, not to Jake, just to himself. A letter of release. He wrote about the man he had been, devoted, trusting, patient, and the man he was becoming, wiser, cautious but not cold, more aware of his worth. He wrote about how much it had hurt when Em sat on that couch and said she wanted a divorce, as if their love had just expired like milk in the fridge. He wrote about how deeply the betrayal cut when he learned she wasn't just walking away, she was orchestrating a life behind his back. But most importantly, he wrote about how proud he was that he had the strength to protect himself, that he didn't beg, that he didn't crumble, that he had the clarity to act before she did, that he won, not in a courtroom, not in a petty competition of who got more, but in peace, in freedom, in truth. By the end of the letter, Liam felt something lift. A quiet but powerful shift inside him. The past would always be a part of his story, but it didn't get to control the next chapter. That was his now. He closed the laptop, took a deep breath, and looked around his living room, the place that had once felt like a battlefield, now warm and quiet and full of only the things he chose to keep. It wasn't perfect, but it was his. And for the first time in a long time, Liam realized he didn't need closure from her. He already had it. He had himself. 2 months after the dust settled, Liam stood in what used to be their shared kitchen, now renovated, brighter, cleaner, and unapologetically his. The air felt different, not because of the new fixtures or paint, but because the weight of pretending was gone. There were no more fake smiles over breakfast, no more second-guessing every glance or silence. Just peace, but healing isn't linear. Some nights, Liam still found himself reaching for a second pillow before remembering she wasn't there. Sometimes, he'd hear a song on the radio and have to pull over, blindsided by a memory that came rushing in like a flood. That was the thing about grief. It didn't knock anymore. It just walked in. Still, he kept going. He started volunteering at a local mentorship program, helping young men navigate their careers and relationships, teaching them, through his own scars, that love isn't meant to come with fine print or betrayal disguised as self-discovery. One night after a session, a 19-year-old asked him, "How do you know when someone really loves you?" Liam didn't answer right away. Then he said, "When you don't have to earn it every day, when being yourself is enough." It was something he wished someone had told him years ago. Meanwhile, M's messages had dwindled down to the occasional email. The last one simply read, "I hope you're doing okay." Liam didn't reply, not because he was angry, but because he had learned something crucial. Not everyone who breaks you deserves access to your healing. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconnection. Sometimes it's choosing not to carry their weight anymore. One day, while walking Cooper in the park, he saw a couple sitting under a tree, laughing over spilled ice cream. They reminded him of how it used to be with M before everything fell apart, and instead of feeling pain, he smiled. That was growth. That was proof. You don't have to hate someone to move on from them. You just have to love yourself enough to leave the door closed when they try to return without respect. And then, the moment that truly sealed this chapter came unexpectedly. Liam received a letter, an actual handwritten letter, not an email, not a message. It was from M's mother. She wrote about how sorry she was for what Liam had gone through, how she hadn't known the full extent of what her daughter had done, and how, in her own quiet way, she'd admired the dignity with which Liam had handled it all. "You showed more character in the silence than most people do in a lifetime of shouting." Liam sat with that letter in his lap, tears welling, not from sadness, but from the strange relief of being seen. Fully. Finally. Not as a victim, but as a man who chose self-respect over bitterness. He didn't need revenge. He didn't need closure through confrontation. He had built his own. In the end, Liam didn't just survive the betrayal, he transcended it. And as he sat on his back porch, sipping black coffee as the sun rose over a quiet yard, he knew. This was the life he was always meant to live, not the one someone else envisioned for him. Free, whole, at peace. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Reddit Confessions for more powerful real-life stories that hit close to home. You never know whose life you might change with one share.